Have you thawed out after our site visit?
Yes. Did we get drawings? Did we get floor plans?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I told Lee I have to follow up with them because Chris Pratt reached out to get the approved elevation, but they never sent anything to me. So I just haven't had the chance to follow up with him, but I need to email him tomorrow and get all the approvals from him. Or not all the approvals, but all the drawings.
We should crucify him.
Me.
The project is horrible. And I'm still so upset that, you know, we approved something. He didn't stick with it. He didn't even say he was going to change it. He just did it. You know, oh, as a matter of fact, okay? This is a horrible attitude. I just don't, it just bothers me, you know?
You're not wrong.
And then to use clapboard as a storefront material. You don't even see that in a rural setting. Mm.
Guess you didn't like it.
He still has they still have an opportunity to correct it somehow, you know, with the change of the floor plans. He's not that far along inside.
Mm-mm.
That's true.
He really is.
That's very true.
Yep, exactly.
Well, John,
They certainly didn't do it right.
there's 5 of you. Erin Tobin might be signing on late. She was traveling for work today.
Oh.
So
All right, we can get started then.
she hops on.
I will call this meeting to order as a regularly scheduled meeting of the Historic Resources Commission of the City of Albany. Commissioners in attendance this evening are Jack McEnany, Lee Pinkney, Marilyn Kaplan, Chris Hacker, and myself, John Myers. Aaron Glennon is representing the Planning Department. We don't have legal counsel this evening. And do we have any speakers lined up for this at this point?
We don't have anybody signed up, but I know it looks like Kara from Historic Albany Foundation is in attendance. So if she does have any comments,
Okay.
We can take them at the end, but no one is signed up as of right now.
Okay. Well, I do declare we have a quorum and we can proceed with the meeting. If there are any comments from the public, we would just request that they stay on topic and that they limit their comments to 3 minutes in duration to give time for other people to provide their comments. So I think this evening it is identified as a public hearing, and it's the consideration of 9993 North Pearl Street. Consideration of proposing the Park Mart for nomination to the State and National Register of Historic Places. And who is here to represent the project?
Michael Lopez from Redburn Development is here to present.
Aaron, did you have any preliminary comments to make before Michael?
Yep, so I'll just, tonight is a public hearing because Albany is a certified local government through the preservation program. We are required to hold a meeting in order to take public comment. I did circulate notice of the meeting to, excuse me, to neighboring properties within 250 50 feet of 93 North Pearl Street. So we are required to take public comment if there is any. And then at the end, the commission can make a recommendation whether they support the nomination going forward, or if they're or if they find that the proposal does not meet the review criteria for listing to the state and national register. I will then transcribe all the comments and forward it in a report to the mayor, and the mayor then sends the final recommendation to the State Historic Preservation Office for the State Review Board, which will be held on March 11th.
Okay.
Then I will turn it over to you, Michael, and just let me know when you would like me to proceed through the slides.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Good evening, all. Michael Lopez from Redburn. I handle all our tax credit projects and grants. We are concluding $80 million redevelopment in Albany of 8 buildings. And I'll rattle those off because often people don't realize the scope of the project. So Kenmore Steuben is our crown jewel, our sort of flagship property there. And you probably all are familiar with the history of it. We have created 93 apartments. They rented in a matter of 2 months, I would say. And we resurrected the Rainbow Room, which was a legendary jazz club that had a brief but colorful history. And the building had 2 points of deterioration where it closed in the 1970s and reopened in the 1980s as an office complex and then shut down again. So we inherited this kind of 1980s mix of interior, which is gone. We are doing 55 Columbia, which is a 1948 small little building that we kind of call our bonus building because we never believed that it would be certified as historic, and it has been. 39 Columbia, 45 Columbia, which is Kennedy Garage, 1923 garage, 16 Sheridan, and finally, what everybody probably knows is Cap Rep, which is the subject of this meeting. Those are all tax credit projects with the exception of 16 Sheridan, where the state declined to have it certified as historic.
Hey, Michael, can I ask you a question?
Surely.
43 Columbia, the garage, what's the use? Is it still as a garage?
Yeah, and above it are now 20 apartments.
Above it?
Above it. Had a little bit of a strange history. It's always been a parking garage, but yeah, there's always also been spaces in there for offices. And, you know, it went through a series of state agency rentals. And finally, a vocational school opened there in 1974 and actually used the 4th floor as sort of a mock hospital and mock cafeteria to train people. So there was always room up there for something. So we thought, apartments above a parking garage, how novel. So went ahead and did that. It suffered a lot of structural damage. As did Cap Rep. So Cap Rep is my favorite, and I love talking about it because it's been vilified probably for most of its life. And even now that it's been rehabilitated and cleaned up, you know, it's probably pretty overlooked. The subject of the nomination, in the first instance, it is a federal tax credit project. So, oh, thank you, Aaron. You know, we had to have it certified as historic, and it was. It was a different kind of a nomination to do because it was built in 1973. Usually the benchmark is 1950 for historic properties. So it was a bit of a heavy lift. SHPO was very supportive of the idea. I think they want to see more modern structures go on the register. And there's a few people there who I think have a penchant for the modern. what the rehabilitation entailed was a lot of structural work on both the ramp and the garage itself, and kind of unglamorous work, but important, somewhat intricate work. And then the theater itself, which is now under renovation. So what you're looking at here is a view of the garage when it was first built in 1973. The nomination pivots on two areas of significance. The first one, somewhat ironically, is it's strongly associated with urban renewal, which has become a subject of historic research. And it really is probably one of the few, certainly the most visible icons of urban renewal in the 1970s Albany downtown. And then secondly, it has a very unique architectural engineering history. Robert Louis Trudeau is the architect. He's 92 and still alive and thrilled about this, thrilled. I think he thought I was calling to talk about it being demolished. And as he's seen this come alive, it's just been such a bonus to see his joy about that. And I'll talk about him a little bit. But the architecture entails a somewhat unique spiral ramp. This was one of a few of a handful built after, post-war. Is a little late in the day, and there's still not many spirals out there. The uniqueness of the structure is what you can't see. It was precast, pre-stressed concrete, post-tensioning concrete. So when we get in, I guess, Aaron, you might want to see if we can move forward a little bit, see what we've got here.
Does it qualify as that brutalism?
That's what we've been calling it, yeah. It has sort of the typical hallmarks. It's the raw concrete with the wood striations, just kind of the whole hulking manner of the building. I don't know if it's formally brutalistic, but it certainly has those qualities of the early 1970s. So the garage you see on the right, that is the subject of where all these tension rods go through the concrete, and the concrete was poured over them, and it sort of hugs the building like a girdle. And so you get the lightness of the vaults, the weight of the vaults being light yet strong, and the benefits of having these slabs done on site rather than trucking them, hauling them, lifting them. So, and he knew the benefits back then. And this kind of concrete construction was really coming to the fore in the early 1960s. So he was rather on top of it. He designed everything right down to the colors you see now. This is the garage after we worked on it and got it done. Cleaned the spiral. The spiral is still raw concrete. Unfortunately, somewhere probably in the cap rep tenancy, someone painted the garage like this rusty brown color. It wasn't within our wherewithal to strip that. So we painted it a comparable color to the garage. The red and the blue metal elements are all, as you saw in the historic photo, are matched to the historic photo, the historic original colors rather, excuse me. Trudeau designed all the mosaics you see there with the help of an art professor. Thank you, Aaron.
Mhm.
They're my favorite part. We cleaned all those. Everything besides just being filthy, the vaults you see there, and we have a few photos up close. There we are looking, oh, there we are. Okay. This is actually a pretty pristine view of the vaults. I should have put a before in there, but we had full areas of exposed rebar, corroded rebar. spalling concrete, just a real awful mess. And the trick of the rehabilitation had to do with how we were going to repair that. So, Aaron, do we have another slide of the vaults? Okay, good. So I'm trying to point at the screen. That's pointless, isn't it? What it involved was doing this repair, giving it the structure it needed to support it according to code, yet matching the original vaults. So we spent thousands way more because of me, essentially. Mock-up after mock-up after mock-up of how this was going to look. So we think it came out well. The concrete's a little bright right now, but parking garages, the dirt will take care of that, I guess. It's hard to keep the garage clean.
Michael, I have a question. In the photo, I almost went to point it also. About, well, I'm asking about what I think is a patch, right, at the corner.
Yeah.
Is that, was that your work? Were you doing that kind of work in terms of concrete patching and
Yes.
putting a steel all
Yes.
throughout and?
Yeah, all throughout.
Yeah.
So a lot of replacement of rebar and a lot of surgery, cutting back to sound, cutting out rebar, replacing it, epoxying rebar. So far, so good. It's been a year or two, and it's nothing's popped. So really happy about that.
And one other quick photo, if I can.
Sure.
The vertical, well, what returns then to be the vertical wall, right? Or I don't even know if it's a wall.
Now I'm pointing again.
Yeah, yeah. So it's very light color, the coffering that we see of the ceiling. And then right back there, it's kind of different color, or is that just how the photograph is taken, or?
It's the photograph, definitely. It's not nearly that brilliant white at all.
Okay, yeah.
We didn't clean the interior. We cleaned the exterior of the spiral, and that's about all we could do. We used a warm water wash. We were going to use kind of a mild Prosecco product, and we didn't really need it. It cleaned up beautifully with warm water at about 450 PSI or so. I kept my eye on it. And I don't know if you have a before of the spiral, Aaron, if I included that or not. Everybody knows, so it was, there we go. And then Aaron may be flipping one to, there we go. So I want to talk a little bit about the social history, because it's a little unusual to have significance pegged to the somewhat new area of research and preservation. To hear him talk, it's almost like poetry in that the spiral was very much meant to convey movement. It really was this kind of emblem of what the car was. He was fully cognizant about creating that feeling of movement, even with the red, sort of drawing your eye up to the garage. And Aaron, I think there's a photo in here from the roof. Maybe, there we go. This was a very purposeful location of the ramp, of the spiral in relation to the ramp for 787, which was just being built. I think they were built almost at the same time. And you can see how it mirrors the ramp. He's just very, this was done very artfully, even though, as I say, it's kind of this brutalistic structure, and not with a great reputation. He really, really put a lot of work into this design. The parking, the spiral helped him site it. It's a very tight site. So the spiral worked. Going up it is a little bit of a challenge. We're not used to, in modern structures, this is a lot of tight turns. I wouldn't bring my Lincoln up there anytime soon.
When you're ready, I was there the day it opened.
Oh, cool.
And there was a Lincoln that didn't do very well on it.
But yeah, I think I know somebody who owned it, actually.
Yeah, it was head of the downtown merchants. And so everybody got around there. There were no cars in it. And that was going to be the first car. And I think it was a Lincoln, could have been a Cadillac. And he was going to drive it up, and it got halfway up. It's back when they made the best cars were the longer and wider of all the cars, right? That's what went on at that time. And it was really too wide, and they'd have to back it up and move it forward and back it up. And eventually they got it to where it was going to go. But it at the grand opening and the ribbon cutting, it was stuck in the middle there for a while on going around the sharp turn. It was Albany Grand Cash Market was downstairs.
Right. Yep. Right. And he would have fully appreciated that. I'm sure he had about that. He's quite a character. So the social history, Jack, you would probably fully realize Mayor Corning had his hands on this project. It was strongly influenced this project. This to him was going to help resurrect downtown. He had much grander plans for parking.
And it was also for the people too of the area actually getting what they still holler for now is, wouldn't we love to have a nice market grocery store in Arbor Hill and down in the South End? So socially, putting a grocery store in the middle of downtown for Sheridan Hollow and Capitol Hill and for Arbor Hill, that was a big deal. So a lot of people were very happy to see this family-owned grocery store go in there.
It was exciting, and Trudeau felt that the grocery store alone would not survive, and so that's how the Park Mart came to be. That sign you see in the back, which unfortunately we haven't been able to take on, did rotate. Mm-hmm. And you can sort of envision these people visiting this site, and Grand Cash Market, I think he had 4. He was very, very well-established businessman. He died during this project.
He drowned, I think.
He drowned in the Bahamas, yeah. And that took some of the steam out of the project. He was very much a mover and shaker. I wasn't here, and Jack, you were, and perhaps some of you other folks. Only through photos can you really see how bad downtown got. And the nomination speaks to, some of it could have been written yesterday, actually, with this clamor for parking and this, somebody please do something. And Corning turned to parking as part of the answer. He had much grander plans. There are these retail palaces that went under. He wanted to build a parking garage with a hotel on top. He wouldn't take any federal aid, is what I reported. He wanted to do it himself. And this is kind of the outcome of that. The market didn't last. It only lasted about 7 years, and then the theater moved in. And of course, you know that the theater has moved, and we're turning that into a concert venue. Aaron, did I give you a couple photos of the interior? So what you knew is Cap Rep is no longer there. So I know the interior is not sort of your purview, but those are old photos. All that is gone. What's exciting is that when we're having an events venue there, is that the volume of the space has been reestablished. And a real bonus for me is that we found all these mosaics buried behind partitions. So I'm in love with them. I think they're just grand. And, there's not a whole lot going on in the interior. So to see this and the lights are period, they're original. And what the concert hall sort of reestablishes the sense of volume and what was the sales area. The vaults will stay exposed. So the interior is really rather a light touch in terms of the rehabilitation. There was nothing much else of historic value fabric inside.
What's the proposed use, Michael?
It's going to be a concert hall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what you saw in the other photo was a stage, and I think there's an occupancy here. I want to say of 1,000 legally. Downstairs, which is very plain spoken space, will be overflow from events. And I can't tell you what the end date for construction is going to be. I don't know. It's been going along. They're working consistently. There was a lot of asbestos that had to come out.
How many cars does the whole complex hold?
145. It was built for a little bit more than that, but really, it's really for compact cars and less density than what it was proposed to be. It is very tight. It serves all our properties, and people have, parking is parking, right? So nobody complains, but it's just it's very interesting to look at it through modern eyes and make these tight turns. And it is a parking garage, so it's very hard. I'm educating constantly and even within the office. But, the bonus for me is that we're both getting tax credits and we're getting a property like this on the National Register. So win-win for Redburn.
Curious, have you guys tackled the drainage, the cesspool that's in the back of the building that seemed to have been there for decades?
Yeah, well, we don't own it, but we know of the problem, and we have we had sump pumps going, and somebody stole them. So the lake reappeared, and I don't think that there is a permanent solution that we've come up against yet. We don't own it, but we absolutely recognize that it's a problem. It's more of a service drive than anything else. It's
certainly a fascinating building.
It really is.
I worked in the building next door at 79 North Pearl, starting in about 1974 when the firm I was working with moved from Troy to Albany. And I remember vividly that energy of trying to revitalize downtown, putting offices in former spaces that were built for something else, and this garage, which always fascinated me. And it was a little interesting. In fact, my employer had a large Pontiac Bonneville station wagon that tried to drive up that ramp one time.
I don't know how they did it.
One person sitting on the front corner of the car, spotting the inside curve to make sure that we didn't rip all the fake wood siding off the thing.
Yeah, I don't know how they did it. And you don't see many big SUVs in there now. I think people must know better at this point.
Yeah. It's perfect for compact cars. And
it is, and the density is lower than it was. We were going to put a shelter on the top, and we abandoned that idea really quickly. We didn't really need it, and you know, you can see there it would have been very hard to set it back, or it never came to be, and we were glad. You know, there's just so many charming aspects about this building, and having the architect still with us, and I hope draw attention to some of his other work. He did, these are kind of love or hate, you love it or hate it type buildings, but like Westview Apartments, the circular tower on Central Avenue, he did. It's got kind of the clamshell entrance.
Beautiful entrance, isn't it? That's a great entrance, yeah.
Yeah, he did
That's his, huh?
Sorry, Marilyn?
No, that's his. I've always wondered.
That's
who bought
his.
that. Yeah,
He did the Green Island Italian Community Center, which is now the community center, another dome structure. As you enter the village, you can see it on your left. Really rather significantly, he really redesigned the whole interior of Albany Law School with a loggia and again, a circle. He's really into the curve.
Michael, can you just touch on the findings of what criteria it's being reviewed under?
A and C.
Okay.
A for social history and C for architecture.
And the innovative use of the post-tension concrete.
Right. That's the heart of that.
Yeah.
Of that criterion. Yeah. That's the heart of that criterion. You know, I was amazed. They certified the part 1 of the tax credit so quickly at National Park. I really just held my breath about this. I tried not to get my hope up. And the other building, I sort of wish I had brought a photo of 55 Columbia. It's just this very squat little tan office building with kind of a steel factory windows on the front.
That was the Street Academy, wasn't it?
Hmm?
That was the Street Academy.
I don't know about that. It was the Legal Aid Society for a lot of years.
Yeah. Before that, it was the Street Academy, and then Legal Aid took it over. And
it was built on spec by, they're called the Backus brothers. They were developers, and they did a number of buildings, and they did that one. And it just had a series of tenants, nothing glamorous. And
they were the owners of the Journal building. That's another whole story.
Well, you're going to have to come see our buildings, especially Kenmore Stu Bennett. It's pretty striking in there now.
It's kind of interesting because it's an important step forward to move into buildings of this type, right, of this age and of this type in Albany. And yet it's not a beautiful, I mean, it's a really interesting structure, but it's not a beautiful structure. It's not easy for lay people to understand. I mean, we still live in a place where so many people will say that they hate the plaza, right? Or SUNY Albany. So there's a lack of appreciation, and those are highly designed monumental places.
Right.
So we're going to have to do some work in our own end in terms of education. I mean, I think there's an opportunity here. I don't know where it goes for us, the commission, because this is a really important step forward. And we have to try to be able to explain it, not for the purpose of what you're asking today by any means, just like,
I'm always happy to
if you ever went to a dinner party again, for example. And,
right. Well, you're welcome to come see it. I mean, yeah, it's tax credits, right? And we're a developer, and probably 80% of our portfolio is historic buildings. So, but the win-win is just so, for my job, is so wonderful because of exactly what you said. And you know, I think we really want to go after buildings that maybe nobody else would think of necessarily without that mindset. We're doing a bank in Schenectady that was built in 1907 and then got a 1953 redesign. And National Park approved that, and that one really floored me. But banks were trying very hard to be this shiny retail, customer-friendly institutions and really divorce themselves from the Depression, which was, of course, disastrous and partly their fault. So this bank ended up being a symbol of that, but no, I was floored. I was floored. So Marilyn, I'm hoping this is the start of a trend.
Well,
Locally, anyway.
The Park Service is definitely in a period of transition. I mean, I was on actually a program that they were talking about the tax credits, and we were seeing some of the first public housing under particular federal law and policy, and like this, you know, you kind of look at it and say, oh, all right, I get that, but it's not obviously an attractive building. You wouldn't automatically understand its value. So anyway, that's off the track. This is great.
I have a few comments. I don't know what the blue form would say about the building with respect to the downtown Albany Historic District, but I consider it an intrusion. It would have been nice back in 1973 had they designed a building which can have the general configuration of this that was more in keeping with the existing 19th century buildings, like the building next door. And there's always, we're always battling with new construction next to historic buildings. What I like about this building is its strong and graceful association with transportation and the neighboring 787 arterial. That its location at the end of the block, right next to the on-ramps onto 787, really makes this an interesting building, even though I still consider it an intrusion. And yes, we have to move into those buildings that are starting to become historic, 50 years. And a lot of them, like Marilyn said, are not that pretty. They don't look like the older 19th century Gothic Victorian buildings, that neo-Gothic Victorian buildings that we are used to seeing, Italianate buildings that we're used to seeing. So that's why I put that intrusion in there, because I consider it an intrusion, but I do think it's worthy of inclusion on the National Register of Historic Places. Because it's
interesting. You could almost have a building like this that's an intrusion to the definition of an historic district, right? If you've got a district that goes from 1850 to 1920s, a structure like this could be designated, could have been identified as an intrusion, right? It's not within the period of significance of the district. And yet you could have an individual nomination. That's what this is, right? It's an individual.
It is.
Mhm.
You could almost, in theory, have an individual nomination for a building that's otherwise an intrusion to the district.
Yeah.
This is, as you probably know, this is just steps away from being in the district. Believe me, if we're contributing in the district, we would have been made in the shade. But I think, you know, since the period of significance of the district ends in 1928, I think SHPO is looking at what do we got here? I mean, Art Deco buildings have been built way, you know, There've been so many buildings past that 1928 mark that definitely should be included or, even argued about. And I think it's healthy.
I do also
Go ahead,
value
Lee.
the fact that I'm sorry, Marilyn. I do also value. I find it great that that you've actually restored the exterior. You've restored the building. You're exposing the mosaic inside, and that's a great preservation effort.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's amazing what water will do.
Hi, Erin.
Go ahead, Erin Tobin.
Hi, I am sorry. I joined a few minutes late because I'm traveling, but I just wanted to say, I think backing up Marilyn's point, because I think this is a really good discussion to be having. I think it's something that's happening throughout the preservation community. I think the periods of significance in older historic districts like we have in downtown Albany really need reevaluation. And this is not endemic to Albany. This is all across the state and all across the country. So, Albany's certainly not alone in looking at this, but what I think is so great about this nomination and that it comes from Redburn is that it's coming from a developer who's recognizing the historic significance and yes, driven by the financial incentives, but to have a building like this be nominated with the, at the instigation of the owner is a really great way to start moving that conversation forward, because so often it's the advocates fighting against people who are saying, oh, this just isn't historic. So I just wanted to commend Redburn and Michael, all your great work on and researching this, because I think it's a great conversation. It's sort of like not the same, but I think related to our mural conversation and, integrating contemporary art, integrating mid-century buildings. And to Lee's point, I kind of chuckled because I went to graduate school in Philadelphia, where, of course, Ed Bacon tore down all the very ugly Victorian buildings, those intrusions of those Frankfurt-esque libraries and banks, in order to create the pristine, reimagined Independence Mall. So, what goes around comes around inevitably.
Yeah, you're right.
No, I think it's a great proposal. I've always been kind of fascinated by the building. It's a good piece of urban architecture of its time, because it does fit within the block. It respects all the rules. It provides shelter over the sidewalk. It does a lot of things that were very sensitively considered when Bob Trudeau designed it. And as quirky as he is about a number of things, it kind of shows in the character of the building too. So yeah, and I echo what Aaron said about applauding a building owner, developer, looking at it as sensitively as you have and bringing it to the fore as a nomination, where so often owners are objecting to being nominated or included in a district.
Thank you, John. I can almost guarantee you're going to be seeing more of this like from Redburn. I feel like we recognize a rare opportunity to capture some of these buildings financially and as I say, historically, because it's very rare for a developer to have somebody like me on staff. So we're really happily plugging along. This is $1.7 million project. I don't think I mentioned that. It's not all dollars and cents, but it was significant. Much of that structural.
It also supports the work that you've done on the other buildings that you previously mentioned. And by the way, I'm the one that voted against the mural on Columbia Street because I considered the cartoon art, which was very non-inclusion of any particular group, but one that If it were on the opposite side, like the other one is, I have no problem. And I think, to me, that's an intrusion. This, yes, is an intrusion, but it has a social history and an architectural history in its own right, that which is exceptional, and it needs to be pointed out and protected. And the way you did it, and as Lee commented, you didn't just clean it up, you really restored it and did it properly. And I think in its own right, it deserves that recognition. It's also extremely supportive of all the other work you've done.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely right. Absolutely correct.
Thank you. Very kind.
So Aaron, our task at hand is to move to whether we support or do
Correct.
not support this nomination.
Right, so the recommendation that you all need to make is whether you support that it meets criteria A and C and should be listed, or does not meet the criteria for listing. And it's a recommendation, so
Okay.
Well, I think, John, are you the one that's got to
Motion,
start it?
I'm sorry, Lee.
Are you the one that has to start it? The comment, the approval or whatever?
Or a recommendation.
the recommendation should come from someone other than John, so one of the commissioners.
Oh,
can
we need
support.
a-
Yep.
I recommend that we approve the nomination.
Support the recommendation. Yeah.
Second,
Okay. Aaron, is there any comment from the audience or his?
Yep.
Is Kara still there?
She is. Give me 1 second. All right, Kara, you are all set.
Thank you.
2 minutes.
Obviously, Historic Albany has a comment because, we comment on everything. But I don't want to take up too much time because we second pretty much everything that has been discussed tonight. But we did want to make sure we were on record that we are absolutely very much for listing this building. And we are thrilled to start really recognizing buildings of this style, since, as I think it was Marilyn that pointed out, we really don't think much of realist architecture in Albany. If it's not Victorian, we don't really like it. But we need to start recognizing that these buildings really do have value. And so we're thrilled to see this moving forward. So thank you, Michael, and all of you at Redburn for doing this. It's really wonderful.
Thank you, Kara. That's very nice, Kara. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion before us. I'll call it to a vote then. All those in favor of the motion, wave.
Aye.
I see no opposition, so the motion is carried unanimously. And again, thank you for all your fine work in resurrecting this little jewel and polishing it.
The big jewel.
It's a big jewel.
It's a big jewel, yeah.
With a real tight spiral at the end.
Yeah, very tight. Once the world settles down a bit, I'd invite you to come and see any of our properties. We'd be delighted to show you the Rainbow Room. Each one is unique.
We could
Cloud
also
Hall is
say-
open at 55.
Yeah.
So you could go eat at Cloud Hall, or I think they're mainly doing takeout right now.
We could also say it's a very strong environmental statement that people should have smaller cars.
Yes.
It was built for the future.
We need to line up a bunch of smart cars out in front of it, and parade them up the ramp.
We can increase the capacity then up from 145.
Great.
If you come
Little
visit,
ramp
just
racer.
keep that ramp in mind if you come visit. Don't bring your Chevy Tahoe up there.
So Michael, because you're on the phone, I'm gonna say this because you're still on the phone. Is back to the appreciation of mid-century architecture. I mean, Albany's really got a lot. I've been at conferences in California where I've seen the state campus and SUNY Albany and the plaza, right? I mean, those are really monumental, nationally recognized by, you know, a very small group of people, but nonetheless, they're very important complexes. And when you drive around, for example, the state campus, and you're kind of watching stuff, you know, around all the corners. And I remember talking to folks from Saratoga Associates who many years ago had done a planning study and said that the whole circulation system and the spine that runs through the state campus, really interesting order. And anyway, the point is that what you're doing here is touching on a part of our heritage that there's very little recognition of. And everyone who's representing here, the commission and staff and Historic Albany and the developers are really the ones to say, okay, look at what we've got. And because it's not a commonly understood or held value. Some people still may not like it when we're done, but that's a second discussion. They won't even know why there's kind of any significance to those. So it's just something to think about in terms of advocacy and education and programs. Is everyone kind of gets the early federal stuff that remains and the center square and whatever, but this is a whole new area that for lots of reasons is very important for us to be talking about and promoting.
Agreed.
So, I don't know what that means, but.
And, you know, I think that the district, I think that there is going to be more attention to that end date of 1928 and what needs to be done about that. But
I was actually surprised at something you said. I mean, I haven't dealt with a nomination in a zillion years, but so there's 50 years, right? 50 years.
It's kind of the benchmark.
But then you said 1950.
No, if I did, I'm sorry. I meant to say that there's a 50-year.
Okay, I thought you had said buildings post 1950, and that threw me off. Okay.
No.
Okay.
This one was a squeaker. It's 1973, so it's coming up.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of that, Marilyn, where like property owners, even in Center Square, they're coming forward where there's a couple, you know, newer structures that are now qualifying because of age, because they meet that 50-year cutoff, but otherwise are considered intrusions. But now they do hold their own significance based on age.
One little anecdote is that my 1950s bank in Schenectady, everybody hated it that reviewed it, but they still certified it. They hated the look, but they got why I submitted. So
that's where I am.
Now, this is nicely researched, so I think that helps support the nomination.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to research.
Well, I know Corning was very active in promoting the city, obviously, and I worked on the Arbor Hill Elementary School. I built a model of it when I was a senior in college, and then went to work for the architectural firm that designed it, during construction. And it was another one of those projects that was very much in the forefront of architecture, modern architecture in Albany, and Corning was very supportive.
Better accepted than this.
Yeah,
I've heard very few people ever complain about the open. Some of the teachers said it's a little noisy to teach.
The teachers, I got stories about that too.
Yeah, it's the open.
It's the open plan classroom.
Yeah.
And teachers used all the mobile furniture to build walls to include areas. So.
Just researched one of those in Hudson. We didn't end up buying it. It's tangled up in the school district. It's empty, but same idea. Just a building you would drive by, and all that history that you said, John, applied to that same school. They're all over. Bomb shelters. I don't know if you built a bomb shelter. This one had a bomb shelter.
Well, it was that was the era.
Yep.
All right. Well, if, Aaron, do we have any other matters to bring before the commission this evening? We have
Just,
the meeting with the
yeah,
the
land use committee.
planning committee of the Common Council.
Right.
And discussed the revisions to local law that Rich Conti was promoting. And Amy Levine did a great job polishing it up and legalizing it a bit more so that there was a great deal more substance to it in terms of specificity and requirements. And I think Rich Conti basically accepted all of the suggestions that were put forward. And, so I think that's going to be moving forward.
Yeah.
Thank Amy for her hard work on it.
Yeah, we spent a good chunk of Friday afternoon working on putting that together. And then part of our weekend. And so
Well, thank you.
yeah, it will go now. It has to sit for a period. And it will be going to full Common Council, the full Common Council in March for them to vote on it or review it and then vote on it at a later date. But it did get voted out of the land use committee last night. And I haven't looked at it yet, but Richard did send out another draft with some just further revisions and some integration of language. So I need to look at that, but I'll let you know when that will be going to the Common Council. So.
Okay. Yeah, if there's value in the registering and speaking, in the Common Council meeting.
Yeah, I will let you know. I mean, I think overall, it was very well supported last night. I was very pleased to see that a number of them actually went back and watched our last commission workshop. And so some of them, some of the committee members even picked up and proposed some of the, not proposed, but brought forward some of the HRC's comments that weren't included in the revisions. So
They watched our meeting?
they watched our meeting.
Yikes.
Scary, isn't it?
So, but I know I thought it would only be Richard watching the meeting, but a number of them went back and watched our meeting. So
COVID does weird things.
you know.
Have a lot more Zoom time.
But I will keep you all updated on that. So
Before we go, what's in the background of where Marilyn is speaking from?
About 35 years ago, we bought this little shack out in Valatia, North Chatham
Yes.
area.
Yep.
It's on a little lake, which is here.
I knew you had a place there. I didn't know.
Well, here, yeah. So it's north of Kinderhook Lake. It's called Little Lake or Round Lake because
Yes,
the Chatham line runs through it. So it'd been rented for about 20 years. And then we've been back there cleaning 30 years of mouse turds in deep, dark corners. Wait, are we still being recorded?
We are, yes.
yeah.
So anyway, when I work out there, yeah, there's windows to the lake, and that's the view.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah,
Very nice.
and it's right near big deal in Columbia County. It's about our house is just half mile down a road from the new bike trail, the electric trail. So
yeah,
that's a real asset out there.
Yeah,
all the way down.
very good.
Yeah.
That's what I believe, right?
Well, it's going to become a very valuable piece of property with COVID and everyone's searching for faraway places to live.
Yeah, but like everything else in in the Hudson Valley. If you wanted to, you couldn't afford to go anywhere then, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, I will entertain a motion to adjourn unless someone has something else to bring before the commission this evening.
So move.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hey, good night.
Good night.
Right.
Thanks
Michael.
all.
Thank you,
Thank you
Michael.
all.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Michael. Good luck.
Thanks for your
Michael.
support.
Thank you.
Good boy.
Um,
Okay, Jack found the button.
He found it. All right. Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good
And
night.
let me know when the common council meets and we'll discuss this item.
Yeah, and if I see anything that stands out in Richard Conti's revisions, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
All right.